Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Fantastic Four issue number 244, cover dated July 1982. The cover is by John Byrne, pencils and inks by him, but it's from a cover sketch by Ed Hannigan. I think it's a very effective cover. I do like the design here, and of course the cover caption when Galactus calls. So that is his hand there, and it looks like the arrival of a new herald for Galactus, but who could it be? Well, let's open this one up to the first page, which begins unexpectedly in the apartment shared by Frankie Ray with her roommate, Juliette D'Angelo, and she's there doing some aerobics and listening to the radio, where there's an announcement about how the superpowered alien known as Galactus seems once again to have disappeared. Now, in the previous issue, the cliffhanger was Reed Richards and Captain America deciding that they'd have to save Galactus's life. So how did all of that turn out? Well, we have to read on to find out. So somebody starts ringing at the doorbell of the apartment, and Julie gets up, goes to the door, opens it up, and who could it be? Is it Frankie Ray? And why would she be so surprised if that were the case? Let's turn the page and see who it is. Well, it turns out to be Johnny Storm, and he looks worse for wear. Look at the state of him there. And he says, Julie, Frankie, she's gone. Frankie's gone. So, is that Frankie Ray on the cover, transformed by Galactus? So Julie there exclaims his name. He faints forward, and she holds him aloft, puts him on the sofa, goes into the kitchen in order to put on some hot tea. Then, as surprise slowly ebbs, the cold voice of reason suggests additional things she should take care of. A quick phone call, and 10 minutes later there's a knock on the door, and it is the Invisible Girl and Mr. Fantastic. And of course they're concerned about Johnny, who's been missing for 5 days. You run off like that, it's been 5 days, we didn't know if you were dead or alive. Is there a difference, he asks. Frankie's gone, Sue, gone forever. Tell me why I should bother to go on living. So Sue says to her brother, don't say that, Johnny. It's awful. I know, something none of us could have anticipated, but you can't let it destroy you. And Julie there says, that's the second time he said Frankie's gone. Is someone going to clue me in? So Mr. Fantastic takes off his jacket. He says, yes, of course, Ms. D'Angelo, of course, you must be told the fate of Frankie Ray. So that's pretty dramatic, but I suggest you sit down and prepare yourself for the incredible. So this is an interesting 3-page opening. This is John Byrne engaging in non-linear storytelling, starting with something that happens much later than the end of the previous issue's cliffhanger. Some of the things I like in this particular opening 3 pages to the story include the period reference to, aerobics, the leg warmers there. And it also reminds me, Julie is involved in theatre. This is the era of the Fame TV series coming on the heels of the movie. So the TV series began airing in January of 1982, and I just have a feeling that Byrne must have been watching it and getting some inspiration for the way that Julie's dressed there, because it seems pretty much evocative of that TV show. So let's get back into this. Oh yeah, and another thing I like here is how Byrne makes the apartment believable in terms of its fixtures and fittings, as well as little kind of funny details like the Garfield stuffed toy sitting on the top of the sofa as well. And then turn the page, get past these advertisements. Mr. Fantastic is going to say what happened, and but he begins by saying it's difficult to know where to start. Says Reed Richards, it's a tale of beginnings and endings. So we get a splash page here on page 4. Galactus has fallen. He's dying. And we have our creative credits here. John Byrne, author. So he's writer and artist. Jim Novak, letterer. And Glynis Wine on colors. Human Torch says, I can't believe I'm seeing this. Look at the way he's shrinking. And Captain America says the torch is right, Reed. Galactus was twice this size not 20 minutes ago. So as Galactus dies, as his energies fade, he physically begins to shrink in size. This is a great image here. You've got a good sense of scale as well, with the different characters. And I also like the use of a screen tone here for the shadow cast by Galactus's body and the other superheroes as well. And of course, one of the things that John Byrne is very good at is rubble. So we see the rubble here that was caused by Galactus toppling into the side of this multi-story apartment building. So Reed here continues with his explanation to Frankie Ray about everything that led up to Galactus being in this situation. And we have the characteristic curved corners of the panels to indicate that these are flashbacks, and it all comes to a head with the decision here by Reed to save Galactus's life, which is backed up by Captain America. But I do like the fact that Iron Man is the skeptical senior voice here. Save him. I'm afraid I can't agree with you on that one, Reed. We Avengers just went through a similar problem with the Molecule Man. So that's a reference to Avengers issues 215 to 16. If we save Galactus now, we'll be right back where we started, because of course Galactus needs to feed, and the planet most available to him is our planet, the planet Earth. So I do like this kind of division of perspectives, and I do think that it is credible that Tony Stark, Iron Man in particular, would be much more willing and or inclined to let Galactus die. But that's not how things are going to go. So the Thing says we've got to move fast. Doctor Strange doesn't think he can help. Thor there is has a thought balloon that reminds us that in this era he has his alter ego of Dr. Donald Blake, and as Dr. Donald Blake, he doesn't know how they'd begin trying to give Galactus any kind of medical help. But of course, Reed Richards, the most intelligent man on the planet, has an idea. Galactus is dwindling rapidly. His alien metabolism is drawing on his body's own energies in lieu of the life essence of this planet. But there was something Terrax said about Galactus subsisting on artificial energies. That was something Terrax said in the previous issue. And then Reed says to Iron Man, do you think your employer would see fit to lend us some equipment? And Iron Man says, I don't care for this much, but I seem to be outvoted. I'll do what I can. So Iron Man, who is of course Tony Stark, flies off to Stark International. He puts an order in for some equipment. This guy here is a little humorous scene. He says, this is mighty expensive stuff you're asking me to hand over, bodyguard. Because in this era, Iron Man is Tony Stark's bodyguard, and nobody knows that Iron Man is really Tony Stark. And so we've got a thought balloon that indicates that information for any new readers. And 10 minutes after that, Iron Man is flying with this big box of equipment. I hope Reed knows what he's doing. I'm doubtful we could defeat Galactus, he thinks, a second time tonight. And if he should fail to be grateful enough for our help, it could quite literally mean the end of everything. So the stakes are incredibly high. And we get this top-down angle on the equipment that he's brought from Stark Industries. This is pure Kirby tech here that Byrne has drawn for us. And so Reed is giving the orders on how to set things up. There's the chief of police there, New York PD police, and he's there asking, and you still have a lot of questions to answer before I let you fire up that contraption in the middle of the street, Richards. But Reed basically says to him, you've my complete assurance no danger will arise directly from this machine, Chief. Just have your men continue to hold back the public. Okay, so he can guarantee the machine, but what about Galactus? He can't guarantee that. So Thor is going to fire the machine up using the power contained in his Uru hammer. So we see that happening there. Let's turn the page. And the process begins and Galactus stirs. And at that moment, Thor realizes he's got a problem. By the hordes of Hela, he exclaims, the mechanism doth draw power faster than Thor would wish. The rousing Titan hath seized upon the forces of my very life, and doth drain them true. Mjolnir. So Captain America uses his shield in order to break contact, saving Thor, and then the machine explodes. So that's not what Reed Richards promised the chief of police. So it explodes. Thankfully, nobody is injured because the people closest to it are superheroes and they've got a hell of a lot more resilience than civilians. And the thing there exclaims, holy cats, the whole blame thing's exploded. Maybe I can haul Galactus out of there before. But Reed stops him from moving in. Wait, he exclaims. All of you stand back. There are forces at work here beyond human comprehension. So Galactus emerges from the rubble of the machine and he declares, kind of obviously, Galactus lives. And this is kind of humorous. He keeps talking about himself in the third person. He says, but Galactus is confused. You had beaten me. So this is kind of strange how he shifts from talking about himself in the third person to talking about himself in the first person. You had beaten me. A victory so total. And then he's back to the third person, that Galactus did stand at the very brink of that final abyss to which all that live must someday come. Why have you saved me? Then again, back to the first person. Anyway, Reed says to him, it's a nice top-down angle. You've got a good sense of scale as well. We had no choice. We could no more stand by and allow you to die than we could turn our backs on any creature in need. And now, if you will follow us, I think we can provide a mutually acceptable end to this situation. So Galactus follows them. There's the Human Torch. There is everyone in the Avengers Quinjet. Galactus is airwalking through Manhattan to the Baxter building, and Sue catches sight of him and she's in shock. Reed hops down from the Quinjet, and let's turn the page. Sue thinks that they're going to have to take on Galactus again, and she is exhausted, but Reed assures her, it's all right, my love. Galactus is here so we can help him. I'm going to use our celestial scanning computers to locate a world that will suit his need. So Galactus wants to observe Reed at work, and so the thing helpfully rips open the floor in order that Galactus can look into Reed's lab there, computer lab. Well, Reed Richards, he asks, does your quest bear the desired fruit? And Reed says, just a few more minutes, Galactus, and we'll know. There, by correlating every scrap of information on the planets our scanners have recorded, I have discovered no less than 6 possible worlds, all vibrant with the unique energy that supports life, but without any actual habitation, perfect for you. So Galactus is listening, but not 100% happy. He says, I read within your mind the spatial coordinates of those worlds. They are too far for me to journey in my present state, should they prove unsuitable. So you see, he's not 100% trusting Reed. The dilemma remains unresolved. I must consume the energies of your Earth, or you must slay me and end my hunger forever. So Reed won't accept that. There must be a third alternative, and someone off panel says there is. Would have been better if this was on a page turn, but however, it's Frankie Ray. And Frankie, in the previous issue, has been fascinated by Galactus and the concept of him. And Sue told her that the Fantastic Four had extensive records on Galactus, and that should she wish, she should study them, and it turns out she has. I've been studying the Fantastic Four's records, she says. I know all about you, Galactus, and I know how Norrin Rad allowed you to transform him into your first herald, the Silver Surfer, so you would spare his homeworld of Zen La. I make you the same offer. Spare the Earth, Galactus, and take me as your new herald. So Galactus is intrigued, indeed, he asks, and Johnny is upset. Frankie, no, are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea what you're saying? And she snaps at him, stay out of this, Johnny, I know exactly what I'm doing. And Reed here intervenes and says, I don't think you truly do, Frankie. And he makes the point, as the Herald of Galactus, it would be your task to find worlds to feed his constant hunger, and I fear there are few planets with life-sustaining energy, but no life itself. There would inevitably come a time when you would have to lead him to an inhabited world. Now, Reed Richards, you stand condemned out of your own mouth. You've saved Galactus. You've given him a menu of 6 worlds suitable to power him up, which are uninhabited. But just what you say to Frankie Ray pertains to you yourself, having saved him. There will inevitably come a time when Galactus will consume the energies of an inhabited world and thereby doom everyone on it to death. So don't you see that you're going to have to pay a price for this, and that will come in the future? Well, Frankie says, back to the present, so a few less bug-eyed monsters. What's that compared to my being able to go out there? And this is intriguing because Byrne has been working on Frankie's characterization that she's not a goody-goody saintly saint superhero at all. And Johnny has noticed that about her. She's much more, how will I put it, much more open to a more aggressive form of action. She's less signed up to something like the Fantastic Four's ethical code. So we're seeing that here, and so there is proper preparation for her offer to Galactus. And Galactus responds and says, because he's got mind-reading powers, her motivation is at least acceptable. Too many times before have I chosen a herald who came to me with noble purpose. That was Norin Rad, that was the Silver Surfer. Such purity of heart is ill-suited to the tasks which befall my heralds, he says. So did I choose Terax, a man of corrupted morals and evil nature, but that proved only to work against me, which we saw in the previous 2 issues. But this female has reasons of her own and would suit me well. Reed demurs still, I forbid it totally, Galactus. But sure, how can you forbid anything to a demigod like Galactus? Galactus says, if I choose her as my herald, you would not be able to prevent me, Reed Richards. But the point is moot. I have not the energy to suitably empower her. And Frankie says, I don't need empowering, Galactus. I have power enough already, so she flames on. So, I mean, like, if he's got a kind of omniscience, he should have been able to discern that about Frankie Ray, but however, makes for this dramatic moment. And she stands in front of him, and he accepts her offer. The bargain is made. Then I accept your offer, Frankie Ray. You shall be my herald. But first, must I adapt you for the role you've chosen. So he's got enough energy to do this, to transform her. You can see Johnny there, he's distraught. But any feelings Frankie Ray has for Johnny basically are overridden by her desire to go out and see the universe. Sue protects them from Galactus's energies using her force field bubble. And Reed says, the choice was never with us. It belongs solely to Frankie, and she has made it. So here we have the transformation. And Galactus exclaims, hear me, mortal woman. Feel the touch of Galactus in your mind. Do not flee from my presence. Only Galactus can guide you safely through the corridors of madness as your humanity slips away to be replaced by something greater. And here she is, standing transformed. The woman that you were is no more. The mundane aspects of your existence are inconsequential. The creature who once called herself Frankie Ray is reborn. Now and forevermore shall you be the herald of Galactus. And there's something about this sequence and something about some of the phrasing here. Hear me, and also the creature who was once called and now and forevermore. All of this reminds me of Uncanny X-Men 101 and Jean Grey's emergence from Jamaica Bay as Phoenix. And I think that Byrne is recalling that somewhat here in his writing of this particular scene. So let's continue. Johnny there, he's upset. Frankie, oh babe, what has he done to you? She's not even listening to him. Reed holds him back. Careful, Johnny. I think there's very little of Frankie Ray left there. And she says to Reed, "You're wrong, Reed. I'm still Frankie Ray, but a newer, better Frankie Ray, and I'm free." So she rises into the air. Johnny goes after her, burning Reed in the process. He's so heartbroken, so distraught. Wait, please wait, he implores her, but she isn't even listening to him. So off she flies into outer space, and of course the Human Torch can't follow her there because he needs air for his flame, and he falls back to Earth, losing power, losing consciousness. Gotta hold on, gotta keep a flame. And Frankie Ray, if there truly still exists a being by that name, she is a small and trivial part of the golden comet which now streaks away from our solar system. This is no longer a frail creature of the dwindling Earth. Her home is now the universe. So this is a reminder that, Reed is supposed to be our narrator here. So here's Frankie flying out past, probably this is supposed to be Saturn here, the rings of Saturn and its moons. So she'll be leaving the solar system soon enough. This is a great sequence here. I like the spotting of blacks on the back of Sue and Reed there as Johnny flies up into the air. It's really well done. Let's continue with the story. And we're pretty much at the end now. Back on Earth. Reed says to Galactus, "Well, Galactus, you have your herald. I don't think we will ever know if this was the right thing to do or if we should have tried anything to stop you from taking her." Galactus simply says, "I did not take her, Reed Richards. She chose a path she's long hungered to tread. I touched her mind, I know this to be true. And true also was my vow, my pact with her. The woman is my herald, and so shall Earth remain inviolate." So once again, Galactus is honor bound, not to consume the life energy of the Earth. So Earth is saved by Frankie Ray's bargain with him. And Galactus here says, "Yet perhaps there is another reason I stay my hand, a deeper, truer reason. Perhaps it is because you risked all to save me when it would have been easy to do otherwise, like Tony Stark, like Iron Man wanted. Perhaps Galactus has learned an important truth this day. Earth shall never more need fear me. For perhaps here on this tiny whirling mote, alone in all the cosmos, has Galactus truly found those he might dare name friends." So that's a bit of a big surprise. Galactus having any friends at all. The carrier Nimbus billows around his giant form. So again, another interesting use of a screen tone there for that. And Galactus is gone. So he's aboard his ship and he's following Frankie as she takes him to one of those 6 planets for him to consume. "It's over. Galactus will not trouble us again," says Reed. "Perhaps his humanity is not so lost as he might think, if he can still be touched by simple human compassion." So the Thing says, kind of funnily, "I think I'm impressed." And Sue asks, "But Reed, where's the torch? Where is Johnny?" So that brings us back to the present of her story in Frankie Ray's apartment that she once shared with Juliet D'Angelo. And Johnny's distraught. He's there. "I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, aren't I?" And Sue comforts her younger brother, saying, "How can you say that? The Fantastic Four is more than just a superhero group. We're a family. And you'd be part of that family even if you weren't my brother." But Johnny says, "Don't try to sidestep the obvious, sis. You know what I mean. Every woman I've ever loved has been taken from me somehow. For the sake of story drama, Johnny. That's why it keeps happening. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the jerk some people think. And sometimes you are a bit of a jerk, Johnny Storm." But Reed says, "I don't think this is the time or place to worry about that." So notice how he doesn't say, "You're not a jerk, Johnny." He just simply sidesteps it and says, "I don't think this is the time or place to worry about that, Johnny. You're tired and distressed." So Sue tells him to come home, come back to where you're loved. And he agrees, "Maybe you're right." But look at the state of him. He really does look like he properly is hurt. So back to the Baxter building he goes. He thanks Julie for the tea. She says, "Hey, no problem, I mean, if you ever need a shoulder to cry on, you know the number. So he's only half listening. She sits on the sofa there with Garfield, and she thinks to herself in a way, suddenly her exercises seem very trivial things indeed. You're going to have to find a new roommate or apartment mate to pay the rent. Prologue 1. Okay. Spring has come to Manhattan, bringing a taste, not actually sweet, but at least less bitter, to the air over the Big Apple. So our story, our Galactus kind of trilogy, was a midwinter story just after Christmas, and now it's spring, and the Baxter building is being rebuilt after Terrax destroying the top 2 floors. And atop the Baxter building, a flurry of urgent activity has been at full speed for several months. And of course, Reed is project manager, and who's arriving except for Tony Stark? Ever at your service, Reed, he says. I figure as long as you contracted Stark International to do your repairs, you might as well get Stark too. And Reed says, I don't think I've said a proper thanks for the low price you quoted on this job. Terrax destroyed close to $1 billion in equipment, and that's back in 1982. So what would $1 billion in 1982 be today, in today's money? Reed continues, and I'm afraid most of the people we contacted were only too willing to charge twice that much to replace it all. So Stark says, magnanimously, generously, forget it, Reed. The whole world owes the FF. Think of this as my piece of the bill. Now about these blueprints. But this is a surprise. So who's this guy? Richards, this time you've gone too far, says this well-dressed, well-fed man. Good morning, Collins. So the guy starts jabbing at Reed in the chest, saying, that's Mr. Collins to you. And don't you good morning me. I come back from 3 months in Europe, and what do I find? You lunatics have destroyed my building. Well, I'm not going to stand for this anymore, is that clear? So Reed just sighs to himself, and he walks down to his family apartment in the building, and he thinks to himself, I think this has gone on quite long enough. As Collins continues ranting, Mr. Collins, he says, as he writes something on this piece of paper on his desk, I think this check should take care of this matter, and we won't be hearing from you again, will we? So Stark was there to witness the whole thing. He looks like the proverbial canary swallowing cat. What did you do? And Reed says, I simply exercised the option I'd written into the contract when we were forced by bankruptcy to sell our headquarters to Collins. And that's all the way back in issue number 9. Stanley and Jack Kirby's issue number 9. So John Byrne tying this little moment here all the way back to the beginning, more or less. I just bought the whole Baxter building, says Reed. So that's a hell of a development. And it gives you a sense like, how much money does the Fantastic Four have in the bank? And then Collins is heading away with these little dollar signs over his head and that big smile on his face. Probably heading back to Europe now for another 3 months. And Sue says, Reed, I've completed the checks of the rest of the... So she sees Mr. Collins going by, and she says, well, he seems inordinately pleased with himself. Did I miss something? So Reed says he'll explain about it later. You were finishing your checks? Yes. I've examined the rest of our HQ, and everything is intact. I double-checked the cryogenics lab, where we're holding Dr. Doom. So Reed is been so distracted with project managing the rebuilding of the building, of the Baxter building, the top 2 floors. He's forgotten about Dr. Doom, his most bitter foe. How could that happen? But anyway, he says, I've put in several calls to the Latvian embassy, but so far none of them have been returned. I'll try again. So he gets the ambassador on the line. This is nice work here with the fixtures and furniture here, kind of evoking the style that we would expect of the Latvian ambassador in New York. So he answers the phone, but who's this cloaked figure at the side panel? Reed there says to him, you want Von Doom brought to the embassy? Yes, it would be quite safe. Yes, he's locked into a suspended animation field, and that's all the way since issue 236, the 20th anniversary special. So the ambassador says, very well then, Professor Richards. Yes, yes, indeed. Thursday will be fine. I'll notify the security staff. And then when Reed puts down the phone, the ambassador asks the person holding this manacled hand, I did well, master. Yes, Leopold. Not manacled, gauntleted hand. Yes, Leopold. You've earned another day of life. Let the fools bring the body here. Then Dr. Doom will destroy them. So what do we infer? We infer that Doom has somehow managed to free himself from the synthetic body that his psyche was imprisoned in at the end of issue 236, and he's somehow been able to download it into a Doombot, but he needs his original body back. So Doom, he's going to be back to menace the Fantastic Four again in the future. Reed here not thinking things through 100%. And then a second prologue. So I like the details here for Franklin's bedroom, like the kind of the toys of the 1980s for a boy like him, the toy soldier, the Muppets poster on the wall. And Sue is heading off for the taping of a TV interview. She's going to be interviewed by Barbara Walker, but it won't be shown until summer sometime. And the Thing is going to babysit Franklin, and he's there trying to solve again another window into the era itself, 1982, a Rubik's Cube. And of course he's having great difficulty with it. And the robot Hubert is there. The Thing doesn't want the flying frog tagging along, but Sue says, you know it's necessary, Ben. Reed built that robot in part to monitor Franklin's mutant powers. If anything develops suddenly, we must know about it. And where's Reed anyway? Well, he's giving a lecture at Empire State University, and he'll be back around 9. So the parents are gone. The Thing there is absorbed with the Rubik's Cube. Boy, I think I've trashed super baddies faster than working this cube. Franklin here is watching, I think it's Leave It to Beaver. We didn't have that TV show in Ireland, let me tell you. So the Thing walks off with frustration from the Rubik's Cube. Franklin has a go at it. And before his child's mentality and mutant powers combine to solve the Rubik's Cube, the robot there starts detecting the power fluctuation. Alert, alert, it declares. Mutant power registering, sharp increase in utilization curve. Systems at maximum input. Unit at dangerous recording level. And then basically it explodes. So kind of has me wondering, how come Reed didn't set up like a beeper to Hubert, which would communicate the power spike? Maybe he felt that something like this would never happen, that the robot would be exploded by the manifestation of Franklin's mutant powers. And here we have the portentous title of the upcoming story, Childhood's End. So what is going on here with Franklin? Perhaps the most heart-rending FF saga ever. So letters page here, it's all about issue 239, Wendy's Friends, and headshots here at the bottom of the letters page just to fill up the space. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on the conclusion, the finale to John Byrne's Galactus trilogy, issues 242 to 244, with an interesting twist in terms of how it is that Galactus is thwarted in his determination to absorb the life energies of the Earth, and how it is there's a new bargain made which preserves the safety of Earth. And that bargain is made by Frankie Ray, who has become his new herald. But one thing that is a plot thread kind of loose at the end of the trilogy is what happened to Terrax. Okay, so Terrax was retransformed into Tyros and fell into a dumpster in Manhattan. But where is he now? Is he alive? Did he survive the fall? Well, what do you think? So let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.